Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on True Story FM. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
Big day, Nikki Kinzer. Big day. We are starting a new series here at the ADHD podcast, and it was an idea from a couple of our past guests to do a show or a set of shows where we bring multiple favorite guests to the show to talk about a given topic. And we are starting today our first duo. And boy, we've got some Hall of Famers if I've ever seen them. We're talking about shame spirals. I can't wait to get started. Before we do that, head over to takecontroladhd.com to get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to our mailing list right there on the homepage. We'll send you an email each time a new episode is released. You can connect with us on Blue Sky or Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest at Take Control ADHD. But to really connect with us, join us on our Discord community. Just head over to takecontroladhd.com/Discord and it will whisk you over to the general invitation page and log in. Now, here's the real pitch. If this show has ever made a difference in your life and how you live with ADHD, please visit patreon.com/the ADHD podcast. For a few bucks a month, your support allows us to continue to develop this show, to support the whole team that puts the show on every single week. Going on, I don't even remember how many years, 15 years, 16 years somewhere.
15 years.
15 years.
15.
And it is an extraordinary gift for us to be able to do this and to continue to showcase incredible, brilliant minds in ADHD. And it happens thanks to, in large part because of, your support. Patreon.com/the ADHD podcast to learn more. Shame is like fire. It can illuminate or consume. It can be a social signal that nudges us toward change or a psychological prison that locks us in cycles of self-blame. Today, we explore how shame spirals form, how ADHD makes them particularly pernicious, and what it takes to break free with two of our favorite past guests. James Ochoa, Hall of Famer, ADHD pathfinder and author of The Emotional Storms of ADHD. James, welcome.
Thank you, Pete. I really appreciate you and Nikki having me on, and I'm super excited and meeting Dr. Felt and talking with him today. It's just like, I love camaraderie.
Me too. And it brings us to our second guest. Dr. Nachi Felt is back with us, ADHDdoctor.org. And this time, he doesn't have a brand newborn in tow. He actually comes with a still an infant, but not brand newborn. Welcome back, Nachi. It's good to have you.
Really good to be here. Still tired, though. Still tired.
And how old is your newborn now?
What was it? The last time I was on here, she was a few days old. So she's
Yeah.
now 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
6
Okay,
months.
So you're
Oh.
getting into
Still a
crawling
little baby.
phase. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Lots to discover.
Well, let's discover some things about shame. I'd like to start with a table setting on the nature of shame spirals. How do we get stuck? Let's start. Let's see, James. Why don't you kick us off? Imagine I'm a fly on the wall in the mind of someone trapped in a shame spiral. What do I see? What do I hear? What's my experience?
In that sense, you can't turn in any direction and not feel like something's wrong. Something is disrupted. Something is painful. Something is horribly disruptive to me at a level with which I can't see my way out. And so to me, if I'm a fly on the wall on the inside of that, it's a tornado that is going around and I don't see a way out. I just see, I might feel like I'm in the eye of the storm if I don't move, but as soon as I move or become vulnerable or talk to anyone, it's like trying to touch, the intensity of a tornado. And it's just like get sucked into it and I can't stop. So I feel powerless. I feel hopeless. I feel helpless. That's what a fly on the wall, and that's what I see, Pete.
I feel like you rightly destroyed my metaphor because you put my fly in a tornado. Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
That's
Nachi,
what I got out of all of that
right,
too.
right. Your fly would not survive. Why? What is the
Unless it was in the
brain?
eye of the storm, not
Yeah.
moving.
Right. There we
True.
go.
Okay.
All right. So, Nachi, what's your experience with this stuff? Like, I'm really curious from your perspective. Why does the brain do this? Like, what's happening neurologically when shame hijacks our presence of mind?
It's a funny thing, Shane. I really loved your opening quote because it's really describing almost every really intense emotion that it could be used either to hurt us or to help us. And we are the arbiter of how we use them. And shame, unfortunately, like every other feeling in the world, does come with like a tremendous intensity. But the worst part about it is that it's activating. It'll activate parts of us that we may have preferred to pleasantly ignore and be blissfully unaware of until it comes kind of yanked out of the darkness into our here and now and are forced to confront it all over again. It's almost like each time I screw up, I feel like I'm seeing all the ghosts of screw up past, like storming into the room. And now that I'm feeling inadequate, that you guys have such great metaphors, I'm going to turn to a Harry Potter one, like the Dementors, like kind of like coming in with this darkness that just
Yes.
all life and anything good. It that's how I kind of experience it. And what's really happening neurologically is what we're kind of being brought back to that like fight, flight, or free, like that primal response where it's hitting a deep part of us that's now feeling fear and kind of scared. Like, what did I do? Who am I? Where am I going? What's my future? What do I have? Who am I? Like, what am I worth? And that's a really dark place to be sometimes.
I feel like what you're describing dances on that line between sort of the um, an antique or ancient really approach to shame and a modern sort of socially corrective approach to shame, right? Like there is some utility to shame. There's some utility to being able to say, hey, what you're doing or what I'm doing is not appropriate in this situation. Can I learn from my experience of shame? The challenge that I feel like we get mired in with ADHD is the perseveration on the negative experience.
It feeds itself, and that's the challenge. And when a fear feeds itself like this from an ADHD spectrum, we have so much disruptive issues involved in it from everywhere we turn that if you're not internally resourced, I'm not going to jump ahead to resources yet. I know we're going to talk about that, but if you're not internally resourced and you don't have external support systems around you, you're pretty helpless. That's a very true from a trauma perspective and someone who's treated trauma for decades. You are powerless and helpless over the neurochemistry and the survival instinct that I always call the Navy SEAL of the mind. You don't have to train it; it's well trained, but we're trying to train it and feed it over and over. So it comes at every turn for somebody with ADHD, and so resourcing to me has been my big bet in the last 6 or 7 years of what is necessary in the ADHD spectrum. I'm not sure how Dr. Felt thinks about that regarding kind of the disruptedness of it, but that's really it comes from all shapes and sizes and all angles.
Yeah, I love that word you used, resourcing. What do you mean by resourcing? That sounds so cool.
Resourcing is anything that is going to help recenter, rebalance, restore your sense of peace or health. And so I'm working on a second book about beyond the emotional and mental stress of ADHD. And really now this is a lifelong condition that's not going to go away. And so one of the key counterbalances, as I would talk about it, is resourcing. How do you build an internal sense of calming, centering world inside myself, which we know the underactive development of the prefrontal cortex in ADHD can alter or underactively develop the evaluator. So we don't evaluate these things well. And if you don't build that internal resource, so resourcing is a key element. And I'm certain, it's part of what you would do, Dr. Fell, as well in working with clients is how do they feel good about and do things that are going to help them help themselves.
It's funny when you ask me like what I would do. The first thing I thought of is the way I view shame and all these intense emotions is another one of our stimulation seeking pursuits. As like again, like part of the ADHD profile is that we're constantly seeking stimulation. And when I was on this show in the past, I spoke about the cycle of ambiguity and how we're kind of always led in this kind of pursuit of avoidance of discomfort. And sometimes one of the types, right, there are four types of avoidance. One of them, my favorite, is complex avoidance, which is where we avoid the feeling of discomfort with other feelings. And shame, like other intense feelings, is a perfect, beautifully distracting, stimulating avoidance. And oftentimes, like Pete, you were mentioning the perseveration, it becomes such a like almost like an addictive drug to just keep tapping that like that intense stimulation. Wow. Oh yeah. It's so intense. And yeah, it's a negative feeling, but it's the intensity of a stimulation that we're really
Absolutely. Well, and if you think about it, what you're saying, Dr. Felt, is so on point and accurate in that that becomes an identity that I resource myself with in a very negative way. But when we look at stimulation or adrenaline or dopamine kind of focusing agent structures, it does become a focusing agent. It's a negative focusing agent. It's a very horrible one, but it is one nonetheless. And so from a behavioral point of view, that's one of the cycles that has to really be broken in people with ADHD is that stimulus seeking space. I will ask many people with ADHD, hey, do you have any experience of resting at ease and being at peace with yourself? Have you ever any life experience? And Dr. Fell, people are just they shake their head. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't. I mean, that's like, I don't know. My answer is that like Monday. Like it's like every day is an experience of living in that sort of emotional dysregulation, right? Which, it feels like again the ADHD amplifier of shame is that I can focus on it like nobody's business, right? I have a lesser ability to be able to just say things to myself like, come on, let go and move on, let go and move on, let go and move on. I am constantly in that state of, of, uh, just sort of disgust with my past performance. That is the Dementor that is resonating around me in the underpass. So what is the if ADHD is already amplifying my shame, right, that it's lasting longer than it would for others, let's say, right, how do we move through it? And I think there's a second question buried in here, which is I am the engine of my own shame. I'm wondering what sort of
Mhm.
patterns you see. Is shame formed more from external judgment or internal judgment? Does that have anything to do with the ADHD experience?
Wow. Okay. Go
Sorry,
ahead,
Jay.
Dr. Feld. I'll let you start with.
Hey, for beauty. You have way more experience than me. I want to hear what you have to say first.
Okay. So there's a reason. Certainly, Pete and Nikki know this. I grew up in a family of 8 children. The first 7 were in 8 years. I was number 7, so I grew up in chaos. And so there was a reason I turned toward family systems therapy as a vast majority of my therapeutic work. Because this is a systems related issue. So you're going to think I'm a little crazy here, Pete, but I've always taken us out on the edge a little bit. I encourage people relationally to start looking at shame as a relational aspect with themselves. Talk to shame, interact with shame. This is and this is normalizing, and not from an okay that I'm broken point of view, but that hey, it's there. It's so much of my life all the time. I'd better get to know it. And so, from a internal family systems point of view, from a relational, but that helps, yes, structure, routine, and consistency for us with ADD. It's a supplant on that prefrontal cortex to be able to use a relational model now with myself, but I'm looking at something as dark as shame is. Okay, well, that's really a tough thing to do. It's hard to tell people to stare into the face of life and death. Really, is what you're asking them to do. That's no small feat. But the reality is their intensity with which they've built resilience to manage their life from. These people are coming in with shoes and socks on, and jobs and marriages and relationships. So they've got resilience to it. They just don't recognize the strength behind that. And so I use a relational model is where I start with in discussing what shame is or is not, because I want to give people some sense of empowerment about what can I do with this in a way that's meaningful.
The internal voice I have is one of I deserve this shame, right? Like I'm taking ownership, I deserve it. And that's the maladaptive relationship I have with shame when it's not a sort of corrective agent.
I love it. I'm so happy I insisted on James going first. That was so good. That was like a big picture, what I call zooming out to zoom in. Like when you look at it in the big picture, that allows you to kind of get a lot more clarity in the here and now. I love that. I love the idea of being relational. And as you were talking about feeling like you deserve it, Pete, it reminded me of me feeling like I deserve it. And then the self-talk I employ when I'm kind of talking back to myself, which is for me, the shame is a gift in a way because it's a uniquely human property of metacognition.
Yeah.
It means that I'm thinking about what I'm thinking about, or more accurately here, I'm feeling about what I'm feeling about, which is so cool. Can you believe that? We can do that. That's insane.
Mhm.
And I love that. It's such a like wisdom giving property, almost like what in DBT they would call the wise mind, right? Like so much there that just if we could zoom out and see like how we're seeing ourselves, there's so much insight there and there's so much space to kind of be there for ourselves as someone who could comfort us, but also kind of hold us accountable, someone who could accept us, but also believe in us and to push us forward. And shame allows us to kind of look at ourselves in a very real way, almost the way that grief kind of sobers us up. Like it could really let us kind of stare at our failures, which I think is much scarier than looking at life and death. Like if I'm dead, I don't have to feel like a loser.
It's accurate. This is absolutely true. Yes.
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go. Pray for the sweet release of death because of this cursed shame spiral. I you know, it's a joke, and I also totally relate to that experience. I
Mhm.
get that feeling. So what it seems like what we've transitioned into is this intersection of like past trauma and shame, and I'm wondering how you know when you're like how do these traumatic experiences like why do they leave behind such disgusting residue of self-blame?
In this case, shame and the patterning of shame and the trauma patterning kind of space that feeds on itself. I always talk about trauma that's untreated will multiply. You can use dissociative experiences and your defense mechanisms. And probably by the time you're 40 or 50, if you have significant trauma or history of shame or distress, you're going to implode. Something's happening. You're going to start to break down physiologically. You can't handle it. And so, why does that happen, Pete? Because early on in the neurological mindset, right, in raising children, particularly on the ADHD spectrum, what's the feedback they get? You're off base. You're wrong. Something's off here. Stop that. Stop that. Stop. What is it? 10x is the negative response that children get with ADHD with other children who don't.
20.
20.
20.
Jesus. Thank you, Dr. Phil. Great. Great. It's worse than I even
Yeah,
thought
it's
it
worse
was.
than you thought. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're
Well,
underselling
and
it.
but I always reference to one gentleman I mentor now. He's in the film industry in California, and my oldest son Gabe, who I wrote about in my book, who has the hyperactive impulsive types of ADHD, and they were raised in reasonably healthy environments. I say reasonably meaning that no environments ever stopped the distress, and they both still have emotional stress issues within ADHD. They both can have minimal shame cycles that something's really wrong with me. They don't stay in it. They don't stay in it. They don't get stuck. They don't perseverate. Why? Because I think their raising early on had enough safety in it that allows them to have a sense of self to move beyond it. They both have storms on the ADHD spectrum, but they get out of it. So why do most people with ADHD not get out of it? They weren't raised in those kind of environments. They were raised in an environment that there's something wrong with you. You're doing something off. And so that just feeds shame. Because shame is the whole sense you're broken, right? There's something wrong. So there's something core wrong with you.
I guess there's a question for me because I was also raised in a what I would consider a healthy environment, and yet I was undiagnosed as a kid. And what I observed with the kids who were diagnosed was all the accommodations felt punitive to me. Like that poor kid was taken out of class, was made to use devices. And when my grades suffered, right, what I now recognize they suffered because of ADHD, there was no other explanation for why my grades and performance suffered. And so it was blamed on the other things that I already felt bad that I couldn't do. I couldn't focus. I didn't spend enough time on my homework. When I looked at my homework, I just literally looked at my homework and didn't actually engage with it. All of those things that are hallmarks of ADHD, we know now, but I never had the benefit. So even to be, quote, raised in a healthy, sort of stable environment, those sort of avatars define the lowercase t trauma of my undiagnosed ADHD youth. And I think that's the like legacy of generational shame that I'm trying to unravel.
Which is also cool. Like, as you think about it and you look at this experience you had as a kid, that means that you were always trying to be better. It's like you were kind of holding yourself to a higher standard and always constantly feeling like inadequate and never good enough. And in a way, again, like what we've been saying throughout the whole like recording is that like it's could be used for good and for bad. This could be something that we kind of push ourselves even deeper into that pit of despair and failure, or it could raise us to keep improving and getting better and potentiating, like really allowing ourselves to reach and maximize our potential.
Yeah. And what I love about what you're saying, Dr. Felt, and this is why I can absolutely see, Nikki and Pete, why you had us both on together, is that we really empower individuals from an objectivity point of view of what can I do with this? How am I evolving and developing? Because that's happening all the time. I mean, Pete, when I took you back in 23 on a podcast through the, mining the gem of your life history of the video, first video you did,
Yeah.
that I'll just, you know, that's how you resolve some of these issues. You have to be able to look at your life history and look at, and you're right, failure is harder to look at than death because it's an ongoing space. And so, how do you unlock that space, Pete? Those little micro T's. You keep looking back at your history and finding the resource and the resilience, and that's part of what I hear Dr. Felt saying.
It's a great thing, resilience. Like my colleague George Bonanno has a resilience lab at Columbia. Infamously says that like the research is conclusive that most people could handle most things most of the time. And it's just conclusive through almost like every study in every area and every culture. Most people can handle most things most of the time. Like we as human beings, as a species, are super adaptive. We're the top of the food chain. We always have been and always will be.
Yeah, yeah,
Because we could adapt, we could change. We're constantly striving to be better. Like you.
yeah. Do we believe we can do that?
Right.
No, that's where the challenge comes in.
That was going to be my comment. Like what everything that you're saying implies, the reason we get stuck is because we keep telling ourselves we're stuck and we have to be stuck. And that's the behavior we need to sort of target for change.
True, but the
Okay.
reality is, look, what Dr. Felt what Nachi just said, okay? Teaching somebody with ADHD this degree of resilience is there. How do you find it? How do you customize a strategy? How do you personalize things in your life to know that resilience is there? I guarantee you that's how I've become an expert within ADHD after crazy over 3 decades, whatever, is I've stayed in front of the failures.
Yeah.
I just haven't left. And I've continued to develop a model that says, you can do this. Hang in there. Okay. And start building around it. We can't, running from it doesn't help.
And that's actually, you don't mind to drag in AI. That's a great way to use AI, meaning is to use it as a way to outsource your
Yes.
own resourcing, to steal your term,
Absolutely.
James. I love it. Great,
Yes.
great term.
Yeah.
If you could use AI to help you resource, that's great because what you're doing is you're basically admitting that, hey, I have power and ability within me. And it's just right now very hard for me to access, but I could use this AI tool to kind of help me, whether through the guise of a pseudo relationship or as a, even calling it what it is, an AI companion, right? Like if I can use this to help enhance my own internal self dialogue, I've now outsourced
Right.
something that harder
Right.
for me to
Yes.
internally access.
Yes. And now it's a bridge. You don't have to live on that bridge. It doesn't have to become everything, but it does become something that I can use. And if we're not using AI as a resource, I'm using it all day, all the time now.
I
It's
I feel like what we're talking about something that comes only after we're able to grant ourselves a bit of self-awareness. And I don't want to skip that too hastily
Oh,
because
don't skip it. Don't skip it. And I would add to that. This is
please,
Brooklyn style, cutting you right off to say that I would add to what you just said, Pete. It's more than that self awareness. It's self acceptance
yes. And self-compassion, like
with
care.
a healthy dose of accountability, or even a small dose of
Right.
accountability. Because even the tiniest dose that allows you to activate yourself to just reach out to AI and be like, "Hey, AI, help me get out of this
Yep.
shame spiral. I'm feeling like crap. Could you help pull me out? What do I need to do?" Even
And
that, it's
it'll
a tiny drop
yes.
of accountability. One small drop of
Yep.
accountability could be a giant leap for your self
Yep.
efficacy.
Right. Right. Well, because you're taking a demonstrated step forward out of your sense of self, which is what breaks these cycles that I feel like I have some power to do something different. What
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well, and that gets to like, here I am. Let's just, thought experiment. I'm stuck in a shame spiral right now, right? Not yesterday, not
sure.
tomorrow. I'm not planning my next shame spiral. I'm in it right now. What is the thing that's going to jar me out of the shame spiral? Now we've talked about AI, but again, like if I haven't yet connected the success of having that dash of accountability, I'm not sure sort of what that next step is, and I don't want to leave this whole conversation as one of sort of, well, it's only hopeful if you are already well resourced.
That you don't have to be well resourced at all. Okay. So you're moving into more of the ideas of what do I do in the moment? And
Mhm.
I go back to breathing, drinking water, food, very sustenance type of things. And what you can do with breath immediately is take control of your physiology in a second.
Yeah.
So doing 3 straw breaths, which, I watch a lot of Dr. Huberman out of Stanford, in his podcasts and those type of things, talks about straw breathing, right? That the breath out has to be much longer than the breath in to start to calm the physiology of the body. And so straw breathing is just taking a full breath in, taking another sip, and then letting it out as slow as you can through pursed lips. Do that 3 times, and you're getting your brain back on board in a more balanced way to think about things. Okay. Dr. Felt's probably got, millions. This is what I immediately do with clients. Um,
Take
you
control of
know,
the physiology.
immediately
Yeah.
because you can.
So it reminds me of what I often tell folk, which is that there are two basic ways to self regulate, right? There's one that I call tops down and the other one bottoms up. So top down is when you use your cognition, your thoughts to kind of calm your body, and bottom up is when you kind of use your body, right? Like James was just spelling out, using breathing and breath work to calm your brain, to kind of reduce the neurophysiological arousal. So I often say that the best combo, like the best way to maximize self-regulation is to do like the combo move. You remember in like those old arcade games when you could do a combo move if you touch all the buttons at the same time? Right. So if you could do both top down and bottom up at the same time, you get like triple power. And so oftentimes I'll invite people to kind of utilize a drop of mindfulness, even just stating, wow, I'm feeling really shameful. Or I'm in a shame spiral. I feel really ashamed right now. Just that, even just that is already beginning this process of self-regulation through a top down. And if you want to breathe it out and say that a little bit slower, or think of it as you're blowing out, right? That's allowing for this combo power of a top down and bottom up self-regulation.
And if you add to that space relating to the shame, I wonder how this shame spiral is going to release in a way I haven't thought about before. I'm putting my mind in an open ended exploratory mode You can move it toward appreciation, gratitude, what the shame made, the resilience it's given me throughout my life. You can flip that pretty quickly. And I love this top down, bottom up kind of a space and using both of those pieces together. And those are simple tools. Now, you'll need 8 or 10 of those around you to be able to grab any one of them when your prefrontal cortex, when you've gone into a shame spiral and what do you grab, that's going to sustain you. And that takes practice over time, with what works for you and when it works. And that's why I talk about having resources around you all the time. You hear me talk about, I've got 20 things within out of sight of the camera here.
Reach, right.
In a second.
I have this image of that little fly on the wall taking a little leg and just like grabbing as hard as it can, like on a little bump, on the wall. Like, I'm just going to hold on.
Little toe hole. That's all I need.
Well,
right.
one little ledge.
Right. And the observation that hits me is that none of these resources, none of these tools, top down, bottom up, all of the things that are just out of camera, ask you to face your generational trauma that probably triggered this thing in the first place, right? All it's asking you to do is say, how do I show up and be present right now in my skin to stop this spiral? How do I show up and be present right now?
Right. As Dr. Feld is saying, acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Just acknowledge what's happening, because that acknowledgement pops the bubble. That pops the first bubble of disassociation and lack of awareness. And that's what the body needs. It needs to hear it. And as I talk about, when we say things, we're hearing them, we're using the aura motor of our mouth, we're doing things that physiologically is shifting it.
Nikki, how does this hit you from a coaching perspective? Because one of the things that that strikes me is that this somatic experience of trying to be present, acknowledge, and understand what's going on in my body at one minute, at a moment, is an opportunity to experience a tiny success. I feel like that's something we've talked about before, the chain of tiny successes that allow us to begin to rebuild our spirit of optimism. When you hear all this, what are you thinking?
Shame comes up in my clients' conversations every single time. There's always shame around something. And it's so important to talk about and to get into the different layers of where it's coming from, but also what to do in the moment. But I love the empowerment that both of our guests are sharing, of that you don't have to stay stuck. Because I think that so many people feel just like they're just stuck and they can't do anything. That whole thing that we talked about with the fly, like it can't go anywhere without making a bad choice.
Yeah, there's sort of that meta conversation about like what ADHD, but like everybody experiences shame, I think. I'll speak grandly. Everyone has some level of shame. Where ADHD people excel is they have meta shame, right? They have shame about feeling shame. And that's
absolutely
the thing we have to break.
And they have grandchildren about that. It goes on and on. I mean, there's layers.
Yeah.
So I want to bring us back to this metaphor of the fly and the tornado, because I have to at least course correct that to some degree. Okay. If you stay in the eye of a tornado or a hurricane for long enough, it dissipates. It goes away. It goes somewhere. And I don't know if y'all saw this incredible picture a while back on one of the hurricanes on the East Coast, where there was a whole flock of birds in the center of the eye of a hurricane that was coming in. And those birds stayed there and flew with that eye of the hurricane until the hurricane dissipates and they fly on. Okay. But they know
that's
not
the most
to move.
Beautiful thing I've ever heard.
Okay. But it was fascinating to watch this. And they say this happens. This is not an unusual thing that happens in the weather patterns, but so how do you stay in a shame spiral when you know it's happening and not implode on yourself and take care of who you are? The acknowledgement. Okay. It's happening. It's happening. Okay. And I talk about that idea of resourcing in the storms of ADD all the time. And it's like, okay, sometimes just don't eat some of the chocolate, don't eat all the chocolate. You're going to feel the upset and disrupted. That's going to be okay. And if you look at emotional feeling states, right, they're moving out like a sound wave. They're going to dissipate if you don't lock them down and keep feeding them. We lock them down too often. I don't know what you think about that, Dr. Felt, but I do want to give us a difference of the metaphor that you can get out of that. You're going to be okay.
Survives. The fly
Yes, the
survives.
fly survives. Exactly.
I loved your you brought up that point of the birds in the fly, and I was just thinking because like birds fly as a flock, and that reminded me of what you were saying about resourcing, like having each other. I'm just like imagining the dialogue going, hang in there, Jerry. Jerry, fly back to the. Oh no, we're losing Cynthia. Get in there, grab her. Yeah, I'm like just imagining that and thinking like how important it is, like you were saying, James, about resourcing, and you were focusing a lot on like the relational aspect here. And I think that you could really benefit, like, and I love your approach because it means that if we could create a relationship with ourselves, we can be our own resource. And that means that even being there with ourselves when we're like kind of acknowledging, just being like that mindful moment of like, wow, I'm really feeling like super shameful right now. Even that, like the beauty of it is that this is a choice. I'm here and I could choose to stay wallowing in it. And that's also okay. Like that's my choice. I'm choosing that. It reminds me of a big fight my wife and I have. Ooh, this is gonna get dirty. We argue about the idea of laziness. She feels, I think, like the common understanding, which is sometimes I'm just a lazy bum and I'm just not interested in doing the laundry or I just don't want to get out of bed. And my approach as like the super like, yeah, accountability, woo, we could be awesome, is that laziness is a choice. It means at this point, I'm not feeling resourced enough. Like I don't feel either enough activation or I'm feeling too much resistance. And that's what's really going on. So laziness is just like the cheap term we slap on any time that we're not kind of being productive. It's kind of what we were told throughout our childhoods. Like, oh, if you're not doing well in school, it's because you're lazy. You didn't study because you're lazy. You didn't do that because you're lazy. But in reality, it just means I'm not, to use your term, James, because I love it. I'm just not feeling resourced enough, adequately enough in this space right now. And that's kind of what's going on with the shame. If still choosing to wallow in my shame, it could be that just right now I'm just not feeling resourced enough, right, to kind of get out of it yet. And that's also okay. That's okay.
When you begin to learn about ADHD, and my model, really is super psychoeducational to begin with. You got to learn what this is developmentally, genetically, neurologically. 'Cause so many adults who come to me have either never been diagnosed or never diagnosed well, as I would say, and understood what was happening. That's the first marker of being able to get out of this and move toward it. And the simplicity of mindfulness or personalizing strategies around shame, that I can be awake between 1 and 5 a.m. last night. True story. Okay. Because I've got a couple of clinical reports that need to get out that I know it's going to be I can't get them off my mind. I'm sleepless. I got the 8 layers of resourcing, tea, massage chair, essential oil, you name it. None of it was helping. And eventually it kind of wore itself out and I got back to sleep and I'm okay. I got 6.5 hours of sleep last night total. That was fine. I went to bed at 9, you know? So I'm here and but this is what Nachi and I are talking about. You live within it, Pete. You live within it in a way that's powerful. You can't.
One of the things I think, James, you've talked about with us before on the show, and that's why I'm not going to start with you on this particular question, is the power of rewriting our own stories, rewriting our narratives, right? And I'm curious, Nachi, when you look at the sort of neurological basis of storytelling, right? We're wired for story as human organisms. Talk a little bit about the power of changing the way we narrate our own experiences with regard to change. What is happening in our brain that can actually help us heal by way of rewriting our own narrative?
What's super cool about it is ownership is ownership. I feel a little bit like, what's his name? Who's that Yankee player who would always say these like profoundly simple
Oh,
lines?
Yogi.
Yogi, yeah. I feel like this is
Yeah.
a Yogi Berra line.
Yeah.
Like ownership is ownership. But ownership really is ownership. When we own ourselves, when we own our story, it's ownership. It's ownership of us. And like I was saying before, of like sitting in the shame, I'm choosing to sit in the shame. Now, whether it's a good thing, bad thing, forget judgment, right? But who's in charge here? I am, and I'm choosing to sit in it. That idea of owning ourselves, owning our feelings, owning our behavior, owning our thoughts is so powerful because it's in a way kind of tapping into the uniquely human aspect of being able to direct the trajectory of our life.
Yeah.
I am having an awakening right now, just right now. And I have to share it because if James says it, then I don't get credit for it. And credit is important. If I choose to sit in shame, I suddenly realize that same agency that allows me to choose to sit in shame also allows me to get up.
Yes.
Holy shit, you guys.
Yes. And that's
like,
no, and that's
okay.
it. That's the dual nature of the human being.
Yes. Yeah.
We're on, off, yes, no, black, white.
Yeah.
That's how we were built. But the spaces, Pete, y'all have heard me say this probably before on other podcasts. I have what I call bumper stickers of life that I live by. And one of the bumper stickers is, you are the greatest common denominator of your entire life. Stop looking for someone else to blame. Look at yourself first. And so within this shame piece, that's not saying that you're broken or wrong, but it has happened to you. Get into acceptance and forgiveness and compassion. And what am I going to do with it? Because as Nachi was saying earlier, it becomes something that I'll stay stuck in forever. And I've seen people stuck in it forever. They live from it horribly.
Yeah.
How many people around the world live from it horribly, at being disenfranchised because of being victimized? It's not good for mental health. Long term, it's not good for mental health.
James, when you said that thing about it just happened, it reminded me of something I wrote in the notes. So in a characteristically non-ADHD way, I printed up your questions that you guys sent me, and I kind of went through them and wrote down answers like I actually prepared, like did what I was supposed to do.
What do you think about how I just came and didn't ask any of those specific questions? How's that hit you?
So I'm gonna pull
but you're flipping through them. You're getting through them. I can feel it.
Which is you asked, how is shame different from guilt? And is this an important distinction?
Oh, that's good.
And so I wrote here that shame is where we tell ourselves that something is wrong with me. Right. Guilt is where I say something is wrong with what I did. And regret is something wrong happened. Mm-hmm. And when we're able to kind of shift through that and kind of pull ourselves out of the super stimulating, intense negativity of something's wrong with me, we can move on to this like healthier level, that like something wrong that I did, right? And then be able to kind of even zoom out of that and realize something bad happened, something wrong happened. Like this was just a confluence of, again, who I am, nature, nurture, just light. If I had known better, obviously I would have done different, right? So like clearly this just happened, especially if it literally just happened. I'm saying like if it was yesterday or a minute ago or a week ago, it's over. It happened. And then we could kind of upcycle ourselves out of the shame through guilt to regret. And regret's a great place because regret is an amazing teacher.
Much more palatable.
That's beautiful.
And the bottom line is I will also bring clients back to, and Nachi, you likely see this in your beautiful new baby. I'll take people back to babies and I'm like, was this baby born with shame? Was there something wrong with this baby? It's like, no. We weren't born with this. It's an element that gets layered in and developed over our experience and time. And if that's the case, then it can be unwound.
I love that. Such a great way to look at it. If you look at it developmentally, it highlights this point we were saying before, which is that shame is a uniquely human aspect.
Yes.
And baby won't have that because they don't have a consciousness yet. It's only as we get smarter that we get more shame, which means, again, ownership is ownership. When I feel shame, that means I'm smart enough to notice this, to be able to be self-reflective. Holy cow, I am so powerful. There's so much ability here. If I was stupid, I wouldn't feel this bad.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. If I'm putting that on a shirt, if I was stupid, I wouldn't feel this bad.
Great. Send me one also. I want one.
That's a great one.
I wouldn't feel this bad. Oh, that's great. I'm writing it down.
Wow. You guys. Well, we obviously we could continue. I feel like
for days.
I just want to say, in terms of wrapping up, that last message, stories written can be rewritten, is really powerful for me. And that's going to be something I think about for a while. You both, again, are some of our very favorite people and guests and friends. And I recognize it is an exercise in professional vulnerability to come on here not knowing one another and share the stage like you have. And you acquitted yourselves beautifully. Our deepest thanks for this.
You hear that,
experiment.
James? We actually behaved.
You did. You did.
And we had a little bit of Brooklyn style conversation, not completely,
a little bit.
There's
Some
a little
might
bit
say
in there.
not quite enough, but yeah. Hey,
it didn't get contentious enough. But that's okay.
That'll be
next time.
Okay, Nachi, tell the world where you can be found and what you're working on.
ADHDdoctor.org. That's me. I'm really excited about my book that I hope to be calling Self-Empowerment. Still looking for an agent to help me push it through, but hopefully over the summer we'll knock it out and people can read all about the cycles of agency, the cycle of ambiguity, and how to kind of create that clarity and calm and confidence.
Cannot wait for that.
Boy, I'm
James.
super excited about that. Super excited. I can't wait to read those kind of pieces. Of course, I've got 6 or 7 angles running as a single person. I keep myself overwhelmed in the most wonderful of ways. So second book on when the shiny wears off, navigating the lifetime storms of adult ADD. How do you deal with this when it doesn't go away and you know everything you need to know? There is going to be a season 3 of the podcast of the complex. I don't know when it's going to be, Pete, but it's going
to happen.
AI is going to be involved at some level. You can guarantee.
James, I'm sorry. How many episodes? We need to go back and say how many episodes you've been on the show telling me there's a season 3. You are firmly in the I'll believe
probably
it when
2 years. Probably 2 or 3. I know you are. That's fine.
This time he has AI. He might find true love.
Yeah, that's right.
I might find true love this time.
I cannot wait for that. It's one of my favorite expressions of ADHD.
But probably one of my biggest professional pieces right now is I'm getting out and developing and training therapists in what I know. So I'm doing what's called ADHD navigator training to become an ADHD pathfinder to help people find paths through their ADHD. So I'm doing more national trainings, and I want to do international speaking on the model of emotional and mental stress being the key aspect of ADHD that's really got to be addressed early on in treatment with ADHD. I have an intern in the practice now, Jennifer, which I haven't had in about 15 years, so I'm really taking someone on with me. I have a constant marketer now. That's different for me. So I'm super excited about what's going on. It's a lot of fun.
Links in the notes to all of these resources. Gents, thank you
Absolutely.
so much. This has
so
been
much
fantastic.
Fun.
Thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to this show. We appreciate your time and your attention. Don't forget, if you have something to contribute to the conversation, we're heading over to the Show Talk channel in the Discord server, and you can join us right there by becoming a supporting member at the deluxe level or better. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer and Dr. Nachi Felt and James Ochoa, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll see you right back here next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.